Hey guys, this is Tarun, and today we'll be learning something really exciting about RowMapper. So, if you would have ever worked on a Spring Boot application which requires database connectivity, you would have definitely used RowMapper. So, what RowMapper does is basically converts a row which you get from a result set from a JDBC template object into a Bean class or a data transfer object class, DTOs as I call them. So DTOs are great. I mean, you can put in all fields that you'll be getting back from the query, the column names, and you can put in validation to each column if you want, and that's great. But uh, the problem is, let's say your application makes 100 queries. uh, it's there is a good chance that for majority of them you would be required a new DTO class or a completely separate DTO class. And as the DTO class changes or you use multiple DTO classes, you would definitely need to develop multiple row mappers for them which specifically map to a particular object. So it's good if you're working on a project that requires, let's say, 10, 20, 30 row mappers. Actually, even these numbers are pretty high. But let's say you're working on some prototype, or you're working on some application where data validation part is already being done on some other layer, and you are just to retrieve the data from the database and give it to the uh, whatever client that is calling the API. In that case, you don't need to waste your time creating all those DTO objects, row mappers for them. uh, what you need is a quick solution to one class which maps to multiple queries. So to solve this, I've created something that I like to call it as Universal Row Mapper. What Universal Row Mapper does is basically, instead of mapping a row to a particular DTO object or a bean object, it basically maps a row to a hash map. It generates a hash map out of it. Hash map type is of string comma string, key is string, and value is also string. So it's pretty generic hash map, and it has several benefits, as you'll see. So I've created a small application, mm, to give you a demo, and then we'll see how this universal row mapper works. So consider this is a let's say some school API that caters some requests. I have created three tables: student table, subject table, student subject map. So student table has student ID and student name, subject has subject ID and subject name, and student subject map is a table which connects student with subject. Basically it represents which student has taken what all subjects. So I've filled some value in them. I'll show you. If I So there are three students, there are four subjects in our university or school, whatever it's called, and there are some records of their mapping. So this is the student ID, subject ID. Okay, so we in our so demo controller class is our API class, which has, let's say, three APIs. Okay, one slash students, one slash objects, and last one student subject map. So what slash students returns it is basically a list of all the students. So I have the query select star from student. I have another API that is subjects, which returns all the subjects that the school has, and student subject map, which basically returns mapping between student and subject with their names. So John is mapped to maths, and something like that. So which basically actually this API requires join between the all the three tables. So I've written some query, uh, that's not of significance what it is, but all of these three queries require separate DTO objects if we were go with the traditional approach. Let's run the application. Okay, so now that the application is upon port 8080, I'm using Postman to call the APIs. So local host 8080 students. Okay, so if I call the API, you see as I am getting John Smith one. I'm getting this list of students. If I go for subjects and send, I'm getting all the subjects. And if I call the student subject map API, I'm getting all the mapping between all the students and what subject they are taking. So that's good. Let's see what we have done. Actually, in place of RowMapper, we have used our universal row mapper for all of the three queries. We have not created separate row mappers or separate DTO objects for all of them. We have just created our own universal row mapper and we have used it everywhere. So let's see how it works. So this is the universal row mapper. What it does basically is, for each row it finds number of columns in that row using the metadata from result set. Then what it does is it creates a simple hash map of string comma string type. So what it does is it iterates through all the columns in a row. So we iterate through the columns, we know number of columns, so we have the upper bound and the lower bound is obviously 1. So what we can do is we can get the column name from the column index. So we have the column name, we again get the value of that column. Okay, using the get object and passing the column index to it. Then we are checking if the value is null or not. if it is null if it is null, we are just putting an empty string in it for against the key of that column name. And if it has value, we are using the toString method to get the string out of it, because it works for numbers, all sorts of things, and just to get consistency across everything, all the key value pairs. And finally, once the looping through all the columns is done, we return the map. So what we have at the end is, we return map for each row, and finally we get an array list out of it, and that array list we just simply return. Okay, so that's the simple working. uh, if you have any questions, please put it in the comment box below. I would love to hear your suggestions, and tell me, what do you feel about this universal row mapper? I use it in all my uh, dummy or prototype applications that I create, because it you know speeds up the process a lot. So thank you guys for your time, and have a great day.